there's some real under the detail stuff that needs to go get your spade underneath really to understand, well, what's actually happening currently, and will the new world, if that was the decision to be made, we're going into one new unit, will those issues that we currently got, will they be improved upon? And if so, what and how? So before they make that decision, they need to really understand their current situation. Can they, one, improve that by just focusing on those issues, or do they need to do something different? And is that different behaviour? Is that different method of working? What is it? So there's a bit more, it's a very high level paper really. It's not giving you the real nuts and bolts of it.
So in a paper like this, what do you think is the best way to approach this? Sort of go through it sort of line by line and try and work out, or do you think like it's better to look at the question and then come back to because my experience of doing this type of paper, certainly for other subjects, is that you're best off knowing what the questions are before you then even start looking at the text, because then your brain is kind of primed for it. So in general, I don't know whether that would work for this, but what I would do when doing this type of practice is look at the questions and say, okay, I know there's a lot of data there, but in general, analyze the likely benefits to BS of moving all of its production. So that's one thing. Then I'd kind of look at it. It tells you lines 29 to 31 anyway.
Yeah.
But you've obviously got to consider all the different options. That's 10 marks, isn't it? What are they looking for here then? So it says answers could include, and this is the way they do it. They sort of give you 3 marks for up to 3 marks for knowledge, 2 marks for application, and 5 marks for analysis. So it's very open in terms of the answers could include. So what I think you should do really is, as long as you say something and can kind of justify it, then it doesn't really matter. I mean, approved communication is kind of logical, but there's not much explanation there in theory. But what they're looking for is, that sort of breakdown. So say something, say you've got some sort of business knowledge applied in this context here, and then your kind of analysis of how it suits this particular case, I think is probably the best way to do it. So Alan, in this, what situations do you know where similar things have happened in business, where you've got to work out about splitting things over different sites compared to, combining them? In your experience, it must happen in Sainsbury's all the time.
Absolutely. Well, we needed to regenerate and re-platform all of our depots. So the north, which is what I looked after, we had 8 depots. Some were third party, which were run by other companies, Tiffin, Britain, Excel, those sort of people. And some were in-house, so they were our own employees. So you had a mixture, and those two things, not necessarily today, but they're important to understand, because you adopt a different approach and style to third party to you do in-house. When you're consolidating, closing down one depot and putting in all the other one, of course the return on the investment, everything, all the figures have got to line up and they've got to be understood. But 9 times out of 10, these things fall over because of either the lack of communication, and the chap at the coalface doesn't really know why he's being asked to change, and secondly, there is no vision in terms of that particular unit, in terms of which is where we're going. So there's a big issue around communication. So in Sainsbury's, we were going from a very manual operation, and that's taken a roll, what a roll pallet is, with a piece of paper. I need a box of tea, I pick it up, put it up, and so on and so forth, till your roll pallets fill up, and to an completely automated situation, where actually this piece of paper was replicated onto a piece of software, and the machine identified and picked the product, put it on a conveyor belt, and all the operative had to do was stand at the bottom of the conveyor belt, take the box up and put it on a roll pallet. huge change, because the change of skill base was enormous. So we didn't want people to pick quickly. We wanted people to actually understand how the software works and how to make sure that you don't put the wrong product in the wrong slot. And also you had a volume issue. So closing 2 depots that had the same product line into one automated depot, you put in 2 lots of volume together. All comes down to the people. So a lot of people are feeling disenfranchised because they haven't been spoken to correctly, or they've not been given the full picture. Why is this happening? There is, unfortunately, going to be a loss of people. You're going to make people redundant, because one of the biggest, heaviest costs that business have is labour costs. So controlling labour is a real key issue in every business, particularly in warehousing. So reducing that and reducing the payroll would be in the numbers. It would be really, really important to understand that. But it's easy to say that and write that, but then I've got to go and sack you, and then I've got to sack you, and that becomes, you come into behavioural and emotional type of scenario. I've got a great film clip, not for today, but another day, of how that can be done, and how perhaps it should be done. So we've done that in Sainsbury's, and what happened? Can you imagine what happened when we opened this brand new depot? It had teething problems, because software and a different way of working takes some time for it to be ingrained and work correctly. So despite the fact that the planning was all there in order to put contingency plans in there, a backup plan, so if it goes wrong, what are we going to do? That's great, it's important, but there is still the public perception that it hasn't worked if you have to resort to plan B. So it does take a lot of time, and a lot of that time it revolves around talking to people and leadership style and gaining feedback from the operatives that are now doing a different job, a new job. Now that can either be really, really painful for them, or it can be very exciting. And most people, if they're learning something new or learning how to do something different, actually are quite positive and quite enthusiastic about that. So there is a lot of issues in there, and one of the biggest issues, I think, going back to this example, would be the leadership style of that new depot. That decision of which one they chose to lead that depot would be a very, very key point.
So let's have a look at what they're...
The figures wouldn't be delivered. If you get the wrong leadership in there, if you get the wrong management style, if you've still got high levels of absenteeism, the figures that the accountants have said, well, this is, and the shareholders have signed up to, just wouldn't be delivered. It doesn't matter what you write on a piece of paper, unless you can motivate and carry your workforce with you into the brand new world. There's a chance that it won't be as successful as it could. I have to say that Sainsbury's have got it licked now, that the automation and everything is absolutely superb, without question. But it would be wrong to say that there wasn't teething problems. Sorry, I rambled a bit there.
No, that's good, because I think it's the examples are very important. Now let's getting down to the dividend yield question. So the question here was, refer to Appendix 2, Annabelle, calculate the 2015 the dividend yield, and it's Appendix 2, let's go up to this. What actually saying is, where's the dividend yield? So they're saying 6.67%.
For 14.
They want it for, okay, what do they want it for? They want it for 15. So refer to Appendix 2, which is what, for 14, is it? Ah, yeah, okay. So all they need to do is work it out. So the actual calculation that they do is what? It should be, if you're not sure, you could work out how you could get 6.67% from there, couldn't you? But they actually do give you a calculation, and they say 0.13 divided by 2.1 times 100. but with an incorrect final answer, we'll give you 3. So could you get 6.19, but you just didn't know how you got it?
Yes, it is.
Or could you not get it?
I'm not very good at numbers, so I can get them, but I managed to find a formula.
Okay.
I sort of know how to work it out, but
You want to know a bit more about it?
yeah, like,
Yeah, okay. So the dividend yield is then, if we look at that calculation, so what's the formula you got? And it presumably should be,
annual dividends per share divided by price.
the market share price, yeah.
So 6.2, well, 6.19.
So, but the idea of it is what? It's that, well, the shares are worth a certain amount, and how much you're giving back to people is the dividend, right? So if the share is now considered to be worth £2, and you're giving them £1 back, that you're giving them 50%, half of the value of the actual share. So that's the idea.
Okay.
So we're saying here simply that the share price is $2.10 in 2015, and we're going to give them 13p for every share they've got. So we're going to give them a small amount of the value of that share, and that's just that percentage is just the yield. The yield is, think of plants having a yield of the fruit. It's just what you get out of it. So your yield is what you get out of it. That makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Okay, and so they're just showing you other ways of actually sort of miscalculating.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand the.
So what
I think they've moved into the other year, haven't they?
I think they've used the other year. So if you got 0.15, if you got that divided by the 2.10, or so if you messed up your years, you can still get 3 out of 4 marks. Because what that is, Niels, is that's the wrong year for the dividend, but the right year for the market share price. The chance of an individual mucking those up seems quite remote, to be honest, but they've given you an idea to the mark scheme of what you're.
That's probably why you get 3 marks as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, why do you get 3 marks getting it wrong? Is that what you meant?
Yeah, I mean, for doing that, it's really remote, the chance that you will do that, so that's probably why they give you 3 marks.
Yeah, exactly. So dividend per share divided by share price times 100. But I guess it's understanding it, isn't it, Annabelle, what the thing is. That makes sense. Okay. And the price earnings ratio, which is also, you could look at that and see, well, how did they work out 3.75 from those numbers? Look at the mark scheme and you should get an idea for what it is. The share price divided by earnings per share. So the share price, which is, sorry, why does that keep happening? Oh, that's because that's the one. The share price is this one, and the earnings per share is that one.
Okay.
0.50. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, they've given the option for sort of messing up the years between them. So
it's basically what that share has earned over the year.
what does that mean, really, Alan? The earnings per share? Is that how much it's not how much it's gone up, is it? It's what is it?
No, it's what it's. I've put a pound in. So how much has that earned me over the year? What am I still going to get for it? Which is different from dividends. Dividends is about giving you X amount of money for the amount of shares you've got, whereas the price share price ratio is very much about, well, how much has that pound earned me over the year? Because a lot of people in the financials and people that actually play the stock market would be saying, well, I can actually, if it's only 1%, I could go along to Santander and get 3%.
Yeah.
So that and that's a big thing to understand when people are asking, will you invest in my business? Okay, so I'll give you £100. What am I going to get out of it? And how long am I going to get? Or have I got to wait a year before I get something? And again, going back to my experience in my last business, which we sold, Bureau Office Supplies, that was very important that it was very much capital led from investors who ultimately bought themselves a place on the board and then wanted to basically say, right, okay, I've put £100,000 into the business, this is what I'm expecting out of it. That puts pressure on the chief executive because the chief executive's got lots of stakeholders, got lots of audiences, one of which is the investors and shareholders. A lot of people say the chief executive actually is there to serve the shareholders full stop. That's his job. I'm not so sure that I totally agree with that, but they are extremely important. But they're just one stakeholder. There's so many other people that the chief executive has to consider, talk to, explain. And I always think that the chief executive's job is actually twofold. One is to make sure that today, and this is why this paper is really interesting, making sure today's business is as good as it can be. Absolutely, everything that we're doing today is as good as it can be. But the other 50% of the time should be about, this is where we're going, this is tomorrow's world, this is the direction we're going. And you know, the old sayings are quite true, walk the talk, and the chief executive needs to hold the vision of the business constantly in mind and constantly talk about this is what, okay Neil, so I know we've got a problem today with our internet connection, but this is where we're going. That'll get sorted, but this is where we're going. You know, tomorrow it'll be fantastic. So whilst it's right to raise this is today's concern, but my job would be to say, yeah, but think what's going to be like tomorrow.
Excellent. Okay, so we need to look a bit more about the price earnings ratio and kind of the earnings per share and how that's actually calculated, which is kind of to do with the net income minus the dividends that you pay out and divided by your the remaining shares that you've got. So they don't need you to calculate that because they're kind of giving you that information, but it's good to work out a little bit more about that.
And of course the share price is the share price on that day, so it's only sort of relevant for that moment in time. It's just a bit like a balance sheet. A balance sheet is just a picture, photograph of the state of the business at that moment. So again, it's how much store. I think it's important to understand where all these ratios come from, but understand them is one thing, relying on them totally is another thing. But the shareholders will be looking at that more than anybody else.
Okay, so what did you think? Neil's obviously haven't done this, but Annabelle, what do you think? Should they increase the dividends or not? What's your justification?
So the first part, I did like a yes and a no. I think I did.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I did too. Those lots. So the profits fell in 2015 by 6.7% already, but then the dividends weren't reduced by the same amount. So then surely, if it does look like the profits are falling, why would you increase the dividends? Because then you have less profit to reinvest into the business to help it come back from that falling profits.
Yeah.
The interesting one is, of course, so the amount of dividends you are giving to people helps people work out whether or not they want to buy your shares.
Okay.
So if you are giving more dividends, it could make the shares more valuable because people will get a better return on it. So there's kind of a subtlety to it, isn't there? And how would you, I mean, again, it's discussed, so it's not, this is...
Yeah, sure. Well, again, it's a difficult one, and it's all a bit hypothetical, really, but you've got to remember that Sarah and the family own 25% of shares, so there's 75%, 25% you would hope are secure in terms of the strategy. So, but there is some underlying concern about that from the shareholders. Comes down to well, what's the strategy then? And can I believe in the strategy of the business? Question. Yeah, okay, I'll accept a lower dividend. There's jam tomorrow. If I've got to just eat bread and butter, I've got to know that there's going to be jam tomorrow. So the job is very much to be able to lay out the picture. This is where we are, but this is where we're going. So not only does he need to walk the talk with his employees, he needs to again talk to his stake, another important stakeholder, which is shareholders, about this is my strategy. So making it very, very clear about where we're going, where we are going, and how I'm going to get there, how I'm going to take this business forward, is so, so important. Because if you can take people with you and the shareholders believe in your strategy, then that's going to be great. But if you've got to be careful you don't promise something you can't deliver. And there's a lot of chief executives who've done that historically in lots of different businesses. And of course, they don't last very long because there's a shareholder revolt. You haven't delivered what you said you were going to deliver. Sometimes there's circumstances beyond their control. But that's all about risk. And another big part of Sarah's job in this paper is to mitigate the risk, to reduce the risk. She's going to have to take risks. There's going to be risks, but to reduce it down as much as possible. Shareholders like that. They don't like big risk stuff.
So what are the sort of risks of not giving a high enough dividend? What would happen if there was a shareholders revolt? Would that mean they would sell their shares and leave the company? Would it mean they would, what sort of things, what scenarios could play out?
Well, that is one, of course.
And then the value is going to go down if everyone's trying to sell.
Yeah. And then the value of the company reduces significantly. And that would be a judgment, a decision to be made in terms of, well, it's all about balance here. I probably need to give them a little bit just to say, well, I'll give you something today. It's a bit like the 1% cap on public sector workers at the moment. Is it right? Is it wrong? It may be that there is a need, you can see that there's a storm brewing, and if I don't do something now, then it's going to be painful. So it's a judgmental thing, to be honest with you. And I wouldn't call it on this paper. Yes, I'd definitely give them something. Because it would come back to, well, how much money do I need to fund my strategy? It comes back to, well, what's the plan? And how are you going to fund it? Well, I'm going to fund it by not giving you any more dividend this year, but you can see it's going to double next year, or double.
Yeah.
That's why the role of the leader of the business has got to be very, very focused on where is the business going.
Yeah. So the key thing would be it depends on how clear the strategy is, and how able she is to articulate that to people, and how much they believe her.
Yes.
So those are the big things. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that makes sense. But of course, the great thing about business is that you can, you've got two hands. You've always got justification for why, strategy A is good, and similarly strategy B is good. So, for example, she could say, well, I'll give a bigger dividend, which means people are happier, so they don't sell the shares, or they want to buy more shares, which means the market price goes up, and they know that they're going to be able to get more money from this in the future. Or you give a smaller dividend because you sell the vision that we need that money to invest in the business because of our plans, and we'll get 3 times this over the next 3 years. Really interesting, right?
It is, and every business would be slightly different, because some shareholders, I'm selling today and buying tomorrow, selling today and buying tomorrow. There's a percentage, and there's others that I've got shares and I'm going to leave them there till I die. But it's nevertheless important to get that balance right, because you don't want any of your stakeholders to be discontent. And of course, the strategy is, it's fine to say this is what we're going to do. The devil's in the detail about, well, how are you going to get there? And then you come into change management and different projects and different project streams in order to deliver. So there's a big piece of work for Sarah in this paper, because she's looking at, going to country F, bigger competition. She's got to reduce her cost base somewhere along the line, because that's the other element that I'm not sure that's in here too strongly. But how can she reduce her cost base in order to be more profitable, therefore to be able to pay more dividends? So it's all these pieces of pie that needs to be slotted together.
Brilliant. Should we just take that 5 minutes and then come back and have a crack at the marketing thing for number 3? Yeah. Just because it is the middle of the afternoon, and need to keep the fresh air and stuff going.
Fall asleep.
Oh no. Good. Excellent. Let's see. Cool. It's good chairs, isn't it?
I like them.
Should try and get a bunch more.
Yeah.
Directors' chairs.
This is the type of chair I wanted for my desk at home. And I was gonna go online and actually find one that did this as well, and it just swings back and forth. But my mom went and bought that chair with that, and it doesn't work. It's horrible.
Take it back.
I want to, but we bought it in South Africa and just that's a school bus for the old school.
Okay. There is.
When did it get ordered?
We've got to collect it, but we've got it. I don't know where it is. Uncle Tony's got it somewhere. Okay, right. So this is all about marketing. So a marketing strategy that these guys could use to achieve a market share of 10% in country P. Right. Let's have a quick look. So again, we're going to start with Annabelle. What sort of things were you thinking of in general before you kind of had a look at the marketing?
Originally, like when I saw marketing strategy, I was thinking like above the line, below the line marketing. But then looked at the marketing, it didn't come up so much. I sort of, when I saw marketing, I started thinking along the lines of how they would really lose customers through not being so online, and that in like now, so it's developing to be more technological, that less people really want to call or do their order post. So it can be detrimental to them all the time.
And what did they say then that was in the marketing? What are they really looking for? This sort of thing. Let's pull it apart a bit. So I guess the sort of thing that they're asking is the what a marketing strategy should include, I guess, which is up the top there, and then some specific things, I guess. Yeah. Okay. It's pretty general, really, isn't it? So, I mean, Alan, in general, with your market research, objectives, budget, marketing mix, sort of putting together a marketing strategy, what's your sort of way of approaching this? What would you?
Yeah, again,
I mean, not forgetting a little bit about the kind of the question, the answer they're getting. You know, in general, when you're approaching things from a business perspective, what are you doing?
well, there's three ways to. There's only three ways that you can increase your turnover in a business. You can sell more to your existing customers. You can put the price up, which is always an emotive and sometimes a difficult thing to do, or you can sell new products to your existing customers and new customers. So you could say there's four. Go and get new customers. So in this scenario, they've got a market share. They want the ambition of 10% or 5%, and it's on a slippery slope. So they've clearly got to do something. And online, as you quite rightly point out, is not really mentioned in here, is it?
It says they're not able to use the company website to order. Yeah. So they're not obviously using online much at the moment.
Yeah. So that would you know, again, if I was, I'd be very concerned about that, because their competitors will be. It's always best to be second in the market, because you can learn all the mistakes of the person that's first. So certainly that would be one of the big things in terms of that market structure. But again, it's all about reducing risk. So, and it's analysing what can we do to sell more to our existing customers. What do we need to do? How can we develop new product? And do we absolutely need to diversify? And consider the pricing. I mean, price is always a given, in my view, whatever marketplace you're in. If you can't remember Walls, but if you're in a poundland shop, you know damn well what price is, and it is what it is. Harrods is slightly different, because you're expecting something different. But it's a given, really. You can't be too wildly away from the market. So that Waterman's pen has a price to it, and if I was selling it, I can't be too far away from what the market demands. So it's a bit of a given, but you can play tunes on pricing the product. You know, supermarkets do it all the while. You put the prices up on this stuff, lower than that, changing midweek or whatever you might want to do. It might be just for a few days, maybe for a week, maybe for a month. But this all goes into managing your margin mix and what you actually end game in terms of achieving. So going back to marketing, again, for me, it would be about reducing the risk. So understanding what can I do with my existing customers? How can I diversify? So what new products? There's something in here about going down in health foods. That would be a big risk, and there's no way that I would touch that. How can I find new customers? Well, that's a bit about advertising. That's a bit about quality of product. It's a bit about, you know, am I giving the customers what they want? So product development. So it's all that stuff, really, Tom. It's a mixture of stuff, and I didn't quite understand in here why they demand they have their point of sale with their retailers. What you say? Bit of a...
Yeah, I don't get that either. They sell to specialty sports retailers using point of sale promotion.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand.
So I don't get it. The point of sale is presumably, I thought point of sale is when the customer buys it. One, right? So what? Did you understand what they meant by that, Annabelle?
No, I was thinking maybe like selling to the sports retailers, but then with an agreement that when the product goes on sale to the customers, it's on a promotion.
Okay.
Okay.
It could be that, yeah. I mean, I don't know. A point of sale promotion obviously is something that takes place in
Special offer.
Yeah, special offer in the shop, isn't it? Okay, I mean, so is there a subtlety here about the fact that they're not selling directly to customers at all? As in, sorry, not selling to, because they're only selling to retailers. So it's a business to business. So that's why cost-based pricing is used, I guess. Niels, I mean, you could probably guess what cost-based pricing is, but what do you think that would be?
It would be the cost of producing it to selling it, making a small profit on it.
Yeah, so it's kind of a ratio between how much it costs you and then how much you can sell it at. But if you're marketing to an end user, to a customer directly, you often don't have to use cost-based. You have to use value-based pricing, don't you? Which is, this is going to be valuable for you to be able to use a phone and talk to your friends and have this, and so therefore we're going to charge you £35 a month or something because it's valuable. It's not because it costs us that.
Bottom up or top down.
Exactly. So there is a subtlety there. Cost-based pricing is used. Is it suitable? Is there an alternative that could be used? So what could they, I mean, is there any reason why they couldn't sell direct to customers even in the marketing, direct to the end users? If their website was developed,
then they could sell for just about the price that they sell to the retailers, and then sell to the retailers as well. So the retailers get a better price, but the value price that they sell at is still higher than the price that they sell to the retailers.
And then the subtlety with that is, of course, then you might annoy retailers, of course, because some people can get stuff delivered. But I guess by the time you've built in the cost of the shipping, it's probably going to be broadly similar for the end user, isn't it? So,
I mean, it's Annabelle's picked it up correctly. It's glaringly obvious that if this is today, you'd say, well, if you don't get online like tomorrow, you're going to be dead in the water. You just increasing competitive rivalry will it influence the strategy? You bet it will in terms of operation, but should it impact on the strategy in any other way? Probably not, because competition is good. People see it as a negative. Actually, it's good because it keeps you on your mettle, keeps you constantly looking at how you can improve. And there's not much in here in terms of brand and quality of the product. Is it a Nike, or is it is it sort of Marks and Spencer's own label type of shoes? I don't know. So how it's sectored out in terms of what segment they're in, that's not clear to me. But certainly it's glaringly obvious that they need to get online with this one.
I mean, one thing that is interesting is to work out where they are in the market. Where do they, to tease out from this, are they the Mercedes, or the Ferrari of sportswear manufacturing, or are they kind of the Honda, or are they the other end of the scale? And because that doesn't say it there, so whether or not they could focus, it says they use expensive adverts in specialist magazines. So what would that tend to indicate?
It would mean that they are probably a bit higher end than.
So do they probably rely on a lot of customer loyalty then, brand loyalty? In which case, the expensive adverts in specialist magazines tends, if they were going for the high end of the market, brand loyalty, getting a lot of the reasons why people buy sort of Apple stuff is because once they were hooked on Apple stuff, they got tremendous brand loyalty and they won't consider it. But it was, people used to say it's a tax on people that just want to, that don't want to think too much because, it's like 3 times as expensive as other stuff. But once you've got people, I don't know. I mean, I guess all of these things is up to you to decide based on your experience of business, whether or not what you would recommend they do. I mean, you get 12 months for this. I think the key thing with these business papers is that you need to include some of this content, but then come up with something which is an evaluation that you can justify yourself. And it makes sense for you to come up with a strategy which which sort of seems to make sense. But so 16 marks, quite a lot of marks for that.
Yeah, and rightly so, I would say, because it really is important. I mean, again, I'm sorry to be a bit boring about this, but it goes back to what is the strategy of the business?
Yeah.
Where are we going? And the marketing strategy has got to support it. So the headline strategy would say perhaps that we need to identify a new product range for our existing customers. So the marketing strategy has got to support that. Going online is critical, but there's no point having a marketing strategy for an online vehicle if it's not practically there. What's the point?
Yeah,
it's not a marketing issue. The fact that they haven't got the mechanism to sell online is an operational issue.
Yeah, but whether or not, I mean, so the marketing strategies would be whether or not they increase their, the range of customers that they're trying to sell to, whether they want to sell higher volumes but sort of lower price points to the average consumer rather than to the just the top end ones, etc. And it's not that there's right or wrong answers. If you look at the market scheme, it's saying good use of reasoned argument or theory to explain the changes to the marketing strategy. So it's really, you've got to kind of go with what you feel based on thinking about sportswear, thinking about what might work, and it's provided you've got some points in there, I think.
Yeah, well, Niels is right in terms of saying, well, it indicates that it's top end.
Yeah.
So the headline strategy might be, we're going to sort of grab some middle market because our shares falling away. We're going to grab some middle market. What does that mean, and what do we need to do? Reduce the quality, reduce the price, extend the range,
extend the product line. Yeah,
exactly right. So then you can. Once the headline strategy is we need to go after a different type of customer, the marketing strategy then falls in behind.
And you might just pick that, you might say, but in essence, what Alan was saying at the beginning was that you can either increase the number of customers or increase the price of the product, or increase the actual, the number of different products you can sell. It's kind of isn't it?
Yeah, sell more to your existing customers, and that may be new product. Put the prices up, or go and get some new customers, or all three.
Yeah.
And I lump selling more to. You could make that a fourth one. Develop a new product to sell to existing customers, but basically sell more to your existing customers. Yeah. So go back to Sainsbury's, traditionally a food retailer, but able to sell food. Clothing and refrigeration and goodness knows what, household stuff. So you're selling new product to your existing customers primarily.
And when it says, cost-based pricing is used, is it suitable? Well, it's suitable if there's a lot of competition for this. Let's say you're a wholesaler selling it to retailers. They're obviously going to want to get a good price for the stuff if they can get it from lots of different places. But if you're going top end, you could go for, do you think the Hugo Boss stuff or whatever that you buy really actually costs anything like that to produce? Do you think lipstick costs as much as that? They charge 20 quid or something for lipstick. It doesn't cost that at all. So, but the price of the product or the cost that people have for the product has to pay for all the marketing, the advertising as well. So they're trying to say that, use our lipstick and you'll be cool and awesome and have lots of boyfriends. So they're selling on the value they'll bring, right? Aren't they? So the same way as this will make you smell great and girls will love it. Well, nothing to do with how much it costs to produce. It's about so that's called value-based pricing. So you could work out whether they're giving you an ideal alternative. You might be able to say that. The only thing is, you just got to be able to justify it and believe what you say, because then you have to kind of look for evidence to support it.
The cost-based pricing is sort of in a manufacturing environment.
Exactly.
It's probably.
It's the logical one.
It's probably right, and it's
B2B.
The most common. Yeah.
B2B, it makes sense. Business to business is, as long as we get sort of 13% margin, we can just shift plenty of stuff. Okay, what was the next one? Back up the purchase option, payback period, appendix 1, net present value, discount rate, 10%. Okay, appendix 1. Okay. And what was this for? Again, this was for the purchase option, payback period, the net present value at discount rate of 10%. So Annabelle, how did you do this? Was this logical to you, or was this a bit mathsy?
A bit mathsy for me.
Okay.
I managed to find out what the payback period actually was.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's basically just the length of time that it takes to get back the cost of buying or investing in something. Yeah.
Okay. So what does it say in the marks here? Where does it say in the question paper, the actual, Alan, where does it say that in the actual costs?
In the script?
Yeah. Here it is. Finance director. Here we are, line 40. Okay. Appendix 1 shows expected net cash flows from this option.
Yeah, again, it's a pretty, again, if I was anything to do with it, the obvious choice there in terms of which one would be to go for the lease option, to be honest with you.
Okay, but the question is now saying, let's just have a look at the question here. So we've got forecast net cash flows, right? Okay. So what they're saying is quite clearly, can you see this, that basically the net cash flows, if you can spend the money up front, of course, which costs, I'm guessing, 1,000 for the purchase and 200 for the lease.
Yeah.
So by the end of the second year, you've these two 500s, sorry, this 500, that 500, paid back the 1,000 that you spent. So when you see those numbers, by the way, in I want to double click this. Can't quite work out how to highlight it. Never mind. Those parentheses. That's meaning that's kind of the negative. That's how much you're in the red for, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is how much it's actually cost us. It's cost us 1,000. So after 2 years on the purchase option, we're about to break even. It's cost us 200. Yeah. Well, you say, well, after we break even sooner, but then you're only making 200, 200, 150. Whereas this one, you break it, and then you're making 400, 350, 250. So actually, you make more money with the purchase option.
No,
see
I don't think that's what it's saying. It's saying it's going to cost you £1,000.
Yeah.
In year one, you're going to spend 500 of it. Year two, another 500 of it. And then
Is it?
I don't know.
I don't.
No, it's a discounted. It's a discounted.
Is that not so? I think that table, and maybe it's not that clear.
No.
I think that table is.
It's the cash flows, isn't it?
I think the cash flow is 1,000 out initially, then 500 in, 500 in, 400 in, 350 in, 250 in. Does that make sense? 10 discount factors. Does that make sense, guys? Or cumulative cash flows, negative 500. Okay, let's have a look at the answers. Cumulative cash flows shown only is 1 mark. Discounted payback, 1 mark. Definition of payback. Annual net cash flows. It's 1,000 out, 500, 500 cumulative cash flows. Yeah, that's makes sense to me. Okay, so annual. Okay, this is how I'm reading the table. In year 0, you actually put 1,000 out, so you're minus 1,000. In year 1, you're actually getting 500 back in, so your cumulative cash flow is minus 500. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then in year 2, you get another 500 back in. So if you look at this table here on the board, 1,000 has gone out, 500 and 1,000 in total has come back in, which means that we're net in a cumulative. Cumulative means ongoing, right? And that means, okay, so that's how I understand that. Is that right?
Yeah.
So for your answer, you would put that table, you draw a table down.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
That would probably be the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
Let's see what. Yeah, because they only asked it for the purchase option, didn't they? So they said, I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, that's out, that's in, that's in. So after 2 years, this total is out. I'm not sure why the amount of money you make goes down differently. I don't know. We'll have to see what's that's based on. Is that all these 10% discount factors are?
Yeah, it's a depreciation, I think.
Yeah.
Is what they're trying to get out there.
Okay.
I'm not talking about that.
Let's go back to here and see what the next part of the question is anyway. Net present value at a discount rate of 10%. Okay, so this is for the.
So
back to.
That's what its cost versus what it's worth.
Yeah. So net present value at a discount rate of 10%. Yeah.
So discounted items.
And this is how they've worked it out. So that okay, yeah. Right, so can we see what's going on this table, Neil? See what's going on. What do you think is going on that table? Just have a look at the calculations they're actually doing.
So they're just doing what? The actual money that comes in, the discount factor, and then how much you pay. So how much it should be, how much with the discount factor, and how much you get in. And since the discount factor goes down, what you actually get as well goes down as well.
So why is there a discount factor at all? Because I mean, this is quite interesting. I think I get it. I'm just wondering why Annabelle. Why do you think there is a discount factor? What do you think that sort of means roughly? I mean, you've got look at column. Look at row 2. In year 2, net cash flow is 500, but the discount factor is 0.83. So the discount factor means that's only really 415. Why do you think that is?
I'm not totally sure. Could it be just possible external things that could be affecting?
I think what they mean by this, and that Alan, you correct me if I'm wrong, is that the value of the discount factor of money that you've got now is worth 100% of what it is, right? Because that's the money you've actually got. But if you're not getting 500 till a year's time, it's not worth as much to you. And if you're only getting 500 in 2 years' time, it's not worth 500 today because you can't do other stuff with it. I think that's kind of the expression they're trying to get across. Is that?
Yeah. Again, I'm looking at this in terms of buying a machine. And so the machine you buy for £1,000 worth £1,000 a day, but in a year's time, it's not going to be worth £1,000. It's going to be worth less. And what they're applying to that is a 10% discount cash flow. So the older it gets, 5 years, the less valuable it becomes.
So and the net,
which is applying a depreciation factor to it. I think that's what it's trying to say. Yeah. So the value of the machine is, what I'm trying to say there is 563 at the end of 5 years.
Let's have a quick look about what the definitions are. So 5 the form of value that expresses, does not subtract capital costs, does not express in thousands. So okay. So I think the actual math side of things is not really too difficult. You just say, okay, let's just take the net present value at a discount rate of 10%, calculate for the purchase of the net present value. So all they're saying is that you go through this table, and then you just multiply the actual value for the purchase option by the discount to work out what it's really worth. And you just go through that for all the years and sort of add it all up. So what they're kind of saying, I think, is that to give you a way of sort of calculating what it really means over 5 years to have spent £1,000, I think is kind of what they mean. But we can have a look at that. Right, next question. So, we're not expecting you guys to. This is day one, all right. So we're not expecting to get a full and deep understanding of this on the first day. But but let's recommend whether to lease or purchase the machinery. So Niels, what would you have said then?
So judging by the table, I would have said that we should buy it because of the first 1,000 and then it goes.
Yeah. The only difference is, as they're saying in the mark scheme, it depends on whether or not you've got the money.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean the difference was 200 versus 1,000.
Yeah, exactly. So the net present value of the leasing option is 1 year and 8 months rather than 2 years, and the net present value is 394,500. So payback period length of time, so a quick payback for leasing option is a real advantage. Maintenance costs, calculated discounted payback investment APR for leasing 60%, for purchase option 20%. Okay, so what you've got to do really is look at this in evaluation. You've got to make sure you're letting them know what it's kind of. Unreliability residual value. You think it's worth 563,000. Cost you 1,000. Sorry, it cost you 1,000. Now you think it's worth 563. It cost you 563,000. Is that true? Unreliability residual value. Unreliability of net cash flows and maintenance costs. Leasing costs are more certain. Okay. So again, what they're saying is there's no definite right or wrong answer on this.
And it also depends. So I'll give you 2 examples in a minute, but it also depends on what's the leasing deal, because some leasing deals will be include maintenance of it, so you never have to worry about a call-out charge, and you never have to sort of. You shouldn't. Some leasing when you're leasing machinery will. After 2 or 3 years, they'll swap it out for the next new model type of thing. So it depends what the arrangement of the leasing is. Again, 2 examples. In when I was down in Somerset, we had a printer, a communal printer, and we bought it outright. But the thing was constantly going wrong, and it was old-fashioned, and it wouldn't collate properly. And we had somebody coming in and sort of every month to do this, that, and the other. Because it was getting old, the ink was started to be more expensive, and I asked them to do some work on sort of throwing that out and having a leasing model. And it's just, I can't remember the figures now, but it was just not, wasn't even worth taking it to anybody for a decision really, in terms of just got to do it. So that there is some benefits from leasing. Equally, there's some benefits from owning stuff yourself, because there's always a premium when you're leasing, of course there is. But you haven't got to worry about, well, I've just got to pick the phone up and say the machine's broke, can't fix it, rather than when it's your own. No different to if you're hiring a car or it's your own car. It's the same sort of decision. But again, the accountant will give a view, and a bit like accommodation. Do you rent or do you buy? Which
Yeah. Well, I'm just looking. The interesting thing on this discount rate of 10%. So is that the question is it appropriate? If it's forecast interest rates of 3% and inflation is 4%, is discount 10% a bit high? Because what it means is that if you've got £100 now, right, compared to £100 in a year's time, if the inflation was 10%, the £100 in a year's time will be the same as like about £90 was worth today. So the discounted value that you might say, well, it's 10% a year because inflation is about 10% a year. So the discount rate of 10% seems to be quite generous if inflation is an interest rate of 3% and 4%, isn't it? Because what you really want, if you're borrowing money, what do you want to be the difference between inflation and interest rates? If you're borrowing money, it's sort of more of an economics question, but think about it. Let's say I'm borrowing £1,000 now.
No, you want it to go down. No. You want the money to be worth more than when you invest it.
Well, I've got to give £1,000 back at some point, haven't I? Plus, what else?
Interest rate.
Right.
Yeah.
So you want to keep the interest rate as low as possible, so it doesn't grow too much.
But what about inflation?
Well, you want it to be high when you're getting the money, but low when you're giving the money back. Because if you're giving back the money, same amount, then you'll be gaining money, considering that it wasn't worth.
Yeah, that's something, isn't it? So if you borrow £1,000 and you don't have, and the inflation is greater than the interest rates, that's quite weird. It wouldn't ever happen, but it was, what would happen? Let's say if you borrow £1,000 now, and it meant that in 10 years' time your £1,000 wasn't worth very much at all because of inflation. You'd only have to pay that £1,000 back, which isn't very much, plus whatever interest rates you paid. So if your interest rates was less than inflation, you'd be doing great. And so what they've got is interest rates of 3% and inflation is 4%. So 10% seems quite generous discount rate. Now, Annabelle, your head is probably spinning again. That's too much maths. Yeah. But it's okay. We'll get close to that in time. Recommend to Sarah. We'll do question 5. Recommend to Sarah which one of the 2 existing factory managers she should appoint. What did you say, Annabelle? Because I guess.
Okay.
What's the difference between them?
Let's have a look.
One's sectorial, one's consultative.
So is that just basically giving the?
This is the strategies. Where's the people?
It's
It's on the second page.
I would say that you want the one that isn't sectorial, because if people who have been working under what's the other one? It's sectorial and consultative. If the people who are working under consultative start working under dictatorial, they'll feel that they're not getting the same thing that they used to before. They'll probably want to stop working as hard as they do. While if a person who's working under dictatorial find that they have more things that they can input their ideas in, they'll probably want to work harder because they feel that they can contribute to the company.
Interesting.
Very good point. However, the last sentence on this consultative guy, Niraj, has not been successful in encouraging workers to change working practices to increase productivity, despite being a consultative, inclusive type of
So what you've got to do is you've got to apply your theory and your beliefs to this specific context and work out whether or not, and they do, when they say recommend, they do actually want you to choose something, and they do want you to justify it. Now, I still think there's enough scope. I'm asking, I imagine there's enough scope for you to be able to say either people are possible given certain things that you'd need to do. One is, for example, you may well have to train this individual, or I don't know. Let's see what they actually say with the mark scheme. So this is the knowledge, the definition of leadership styles, the explanation, democratic style. This is the sort of things that you were saying. Evaluation, okay. So it doesn't actually give a particular right or wrong answer. So,
Why do you think that is? Why do you think the answer is not this one or that one?
Because it's kind of either of them can change, and it depends on the people that are coming to work for them as well. Some people might find that it's just the way that people think. It doesn't actually mean specifically looking at the data. The data can be incorrect.
It's very like opinion based. So like the manager involved, whether they think it will work or whether they think it won't work. Because both have been proven to work in the past.
Not today, but another day. I don't know if you've ever heard of situational leadership, but I'll introduce you to that at some point, if I may. Because having one style of management isn't always appropriate. You actually have to move across the spectrum of dictatorship. You will do, Mr. Tell, I'm telling you this is what I want to do, versus actually I'd like to understand what you think about this. So you actually wear lots of different hats between the spectrum of do it this way, let's talk to you, what do you think we ought to do? Then lots of different contexts. And it may well be you wear different hats with different groups of employees. You wear a different hat with your immediate leadership team, perhaps, than you do with the coal-face workers. So that's why there's no right or wrong answer, because it's as much of anything about style. What's really key to this, whoever they decide to put in there, has got to understand, they've got to understand the situational leadership model, which is high relationship and low task, or high task and low relationship. It's very interesting though, if you study successful businesses, the most successful businesses are
I'm really sorry, but can you?
oh yeah, no problem. You go and move. Just as she's got to shoot us.
2 secs while I just finish mine. So the most successful businesses are sometimes run by very dictatorial, I call them benign dictators. Yeah. This is what I want you to do, go away and do it. Because it's very simple for you as an employee. I know what I've got to do, I've just got to go away and do that. It does require that leader to be absolutely confident in his route to success. So that sometimes it's very good. If there is a fire in here at the moment, you know, would I be consulted and say, what do you think we ought to do, Niels? No, I wouldn't. I would say, Niels, get out that window now, and you'd be very dictatorial.
I'd probably pick the door though.
Yeah, you'd probably go through the door. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. That's of course as well. But you understand what I'm saying. There's different horses for different courses.
If you move that, then we'll carry on. And what would be nice is for these guys to, when you come back in, and just start thinking about their own businesses and some of the things that we've covered today, and how they might sort of ask you for some advice on their own business. Brilliant. And then you probably want a little bit of a break, don't you, before your next one at 5, Niels?
Oh yeah.
Because you're going to do physics.
Yeah.
Right. So again, I guess all of these things, it's not about, because they're people and it's not maths. It's not going to be right or wrong. So what you'd have to do in section B is you then, you then actually have to go through 20 marks for evaluate the usefulness to it. Barbarossa, the methods of strategic choice, appendix 3. Thank you. And this is where they're asking you. So we're going to have, obviously you'll have to look at what these things are: force field analysis, decision trees, and frameworks. One of the things that would be quite interesting is to introduce a framework called the Blue Ocean Strategy, which is kind of quite nice. It's not really. Came out of Harvard only about 10 years ago, so it's not Harvard Business School, so it's not really made it into necessarily the curriculum, because these things take time. But you get, the good thing about business is, provided you're clear about whatever framework you're using, you can quote it. And what's nice about that is it's got a 4-stage process for strategy. You're done already. Yeah. Oh, that's it. Okay. Okay. Well, let's skip on to then. So in your own business, so Neil's photography. Let's pull out any of the ideas we have today and sort of see how it might apply to what you're trying to do.
Well, I haven't really gone that far. What I'm currently doing is just setting up the website and the Facebook page, trying to create an audience to first try and get into it and then actually start selling, because I feel that if I start selling and producing product first, like I have a product that showcases it, but it's not on sale, because I feel that if I get the audience first, I can sell in a more effective way.
What will your USP be?
Sorry?
What's your USP? Do you know what that means?
No.
Unique selling proposition. Your unique selling proposition. Why? Because there's lots of people doing that and what you're doing. So what's going to be different about you?
That's something that I need to work on, because I think I haven't done anything really.
No, okay. So,
Nothing good.
so a bit of brainstorming, saying, so I'm going into this business, I'm going to sell my third place, I'm going to do it through a website, all good stuff, by the way. So how am I going to be successful? What are my ambitions? What's my business going to stand for? What sort of brand do I want to aspire to, etc. All those sort of thoughts need to waft through you, and so you can say, this is why I'm different to everybody else. It's because of this. I don't know what this is, but it's for you, and it's got to come from you, because you've got to own it and live it and breathe it. It's no good me telling you what it ought to be. It's something that's got to come from yourself. So that's one thing. The other thing is probably do a lot of research on other businesses that are doing that. So why are they successful? What are they doing that I probably need to emulate, etc., etc. So how big is the market? What does it look like? How much do I want of that market? Sometimes think that, I know you're very young people compared to me, very, very young, but it's always good to, and this is a personal thing as well as for a business, is always to have the end in mind. So what's my exit strategy? Now you probably think, well, I think about at the moment, I just want to get off the ground, but is this a 3-year thing? Is it, do I want to ultimately sell it? Is this a lifestyle? You're not too keen on working for other people because you like being told what to do. Not all businesses are like that, by the way. But that's great, because so you want to stamp your own personality on your business, on your product. So there's lots of stuff to wash around in that. So and again with yours, Annabelle, so
Desk space,
yeah. I mean, there's loads of people out there doing it, and I'll be very blunt with you. I can go to, I used to, when I operated my little business, the Novotel Hotel at Stevens Junction 8, which is Nedworth. The lounge is all there. It's set up sort of little open plan meeting areas. A young lady come along, said, what coffee do you want? I run up the tab, it's got Wi-Fi, it's got the toilets, it's warm, it's dry, it's very nice surroundings. I can get a sandwich if I want a sandwich. So my clients used to come there, and it didn't cost me a penny other than the food and beverage. So why would I have space here? Is a question that I'd ask you. Why do I think I can be successful? Because there's loads of places in Cambridge, you've already done some research.
Yeah.
So, but why would I pay for a desk when I can have one for nothing? Question.
I think it's more of the sort of community that comes along with it.
Okay.
So I was talking to Ben actually the other day about it, and he was saying how when you are in a workspace, so like he's saying about we work in London.
Yeah.
When you are in that space, it's very sort of inspirational. So
Yes.
people, a lot of collaboration going on, and that's sort of what we want to bring here, but not just between entrepreneurs, but between entrepreneurs and students. It's sort of
Brilliant.
bringing that.
That's brilliant. So you've got a vision. There's actually going to be a melting pot.
Yeah.
Using the environment here, but using the people and the energy in this building So that's something that really needs to be drawn out, because black and white, I'd say, forget it. You know, I'm not going to pay 250 quid, whatever you put in that paper. I'm going to go down to the local hotel because I know I can get everything that I want for nothing.
Yeah.
Virtually, apart from a cup of coffee. So I think that's really, really good that you want to be different. So your unique selling point is, and you've got to really major on that, you've got to really work that up. Because if I was asked you to give me a 30-second scenario about your business, desk space, renting out desk space wouldn't turn me on. So you've got to think more about what that unique selling proposition, and then how you're going to leverage that to get people to come in.
I mean,
That's very exciting. It's very good though.
it is good. It's definitely a little bit different, isn't it? I mean, but the thing that I found when I go to Costa Coffee and places like that is that I'd be spending more than 10 quid a day on coffees and snacks and things. Like, you could argue that we'd have to have snacks anyway, but if you're providing free coffee and gigabit Wi-Fi when it comes, for those of you who are watching online and it sort of switches off, the thing is, you know, it's probably cheaper, really, isn't it? Than, I mean, I know what a hotel is good for those meetings with people, but the idea of, you're not going to get a community from a hotel, are you?
Well, yeah, they do actually. A lot of these hotels I've seen, again, along the motorways as well. It's one at Northampton I used to use a lot. It's actually tailor-made.
Is it?
Yeah, they've turned their foyer into an open plan meeting room.
That's only going to work for people who can drive.
Oh,
You can
in
get
that
to those,
case,
right?
absolutely.
So
Yeah, sure.
it won't work for people that want to be, say, near a station or anything like that.
The point I'm trying to make is that it's not a new idea.
No, of course not.
So therefore, you're entering a market that's already there. So doing more and more research about what does Costa have over the corner there, and what am I going to offer differently, and your unique position of saying, well, we're going to get here is, you know, a lot of energy, and you're going to be able to spark off other people. That needs to be worked up into something tangible that I think, I can actually. And Cambridge is probably a great seedbed for that sort of, you know, individual, because it's that sort of environment, isn't it? But you've got to work that up so that I would say, I'm going to starters, those entrepreneurs, and entice them to, because they're very lonely. When you're starting up business on your own, it's a very lonely place. Yet 60% of people in employment would one of their ambitions is to have their own business. 60%, that's huge. So most people want to want at some point in their career to own their own business.
On the control, don't they?
Yeah, they want the control, which is great. No
I'm the
problem at
same.
all.
I'm the same. I can't stand being told what to do.
So
yeah,
I think you need to identify what sort of person is going to benefit from that environment, and it would probably be that young entrepreneur, people just starting out. And I've used this term to Tom before. I could see this turning into an incubation sort of centre for entrepreneurs. And that's probably something you might want to think about. So how they can sort of share a problem, how they can, you know, brainstorm something just for 2 or 3 minutes with you guys, us.
How do
Anybody.
students do? I mean, we did when we were originally setting up the idea that there would be an incubation, so that if people didn't want to go to university, they could go and spend a year and continue with their businesses. But I saw the idea of having young people here as a resource where somebody is an entrepreneur said, guys, what do you think of this? You know, run with that idea for a week and see, come back and give me some feedback. And that would be kind of a real project that students could get involved in. And they could even, you could even set up the students kind of own this think tank incubation sort of resource that they're giving. And perhaps people come here and the students get a small share in the equity through helping these entrepreneurs.
Well, yeah, that's true, but not all businesses are sort of one desk-based scenarios, are they?
No.
You know, there's some people out there that actually want to make things,
Correct.
and so
Yeah.
so it's the early stage thinking and developing type of thing. So they would, I guess, drop in. It'd be a drop-in type scenario.
Yeah.
I'm just talking. I'm not suggesting I'm right, but I just think it needs thrashing out in terms of, well, and Ben hit on it the other day when he was doing his session. You've got to create an audience for it. So where is that audience? What do they look like? And that's a lot of
That was
research.
fascinating, that session, wasn't it? You know, going for the audience first. So Nils, if, for example, taking what Ben said, what I would have thought a really good thing for you to do is, first of all, become known as somebody who is really good at spotting great photography examples at websites or people on Facebook. Start sharing everything that's great about photography and techniques and become kind of recognized by Facebook as an aggregator. And then you start building up your own audience, and eventually you could start selling them stuff. Because the other thing about that is you don't even need to do anything really. If you're sharing other people's stuff, you do that for 6 months, you get this respect, and then gradually you've got this audience, then you can, using Facebook Pixel, you can market your own website, because they don't need to know it's the same person, right? You could be sharing, I mean, I don't know exactly how you do it, but if you can build up an audience of people that are interested in photography, then that would be a great audience to then sell your products to later on. Maybe even more specific than photography. What type of photography are you interested in most?
I'm specializing in wildlife landscape and astronomy.
Okay, it's sort of a natural thing, because that's very different from people that like sort of human sort of studies as well. So getting into that specifics, yeah, that'd be really quite good. Be good for us to set up some Facebook research on that and just start doing that as an experiment and see if you could see how easy it would be for you to build an audience at no cost by just sharing other people's stuff, and see if you can find what people are interested in.
But that's actually currently what I've been doing. I started a Facebook page probably a week ago now.
Oh, okay.
And
Ages. You're a veteran.
2 or 3 days ago, I started sharing pictures and trying to get them up from different pages and different people. And I've grown it around 300-400% in likes.
Oh, really?
There you go. Very good.
Because that seems counterintuitive to me, that you get likes through sharing other people's. I would have thought, you know, people want the original content, and that's the way to do it. But Ben was saying what Facebook wants is, Facebook want other people to be keeping people on Facebook.
It's pyramid selling.
Yeah. If you get people on to share other people so they like Facebook, then you've got this, Facebook then trusts you, so they'll put your stuff in front of more. It's clever. Right, I think we should leave it there really. The most interesting bit is when we talk about our own things, isn't it? None of this doing exams. Was that sorted? Quick, any more questions? No. You told me about that. Brilliant. Okay, so all right, let's wrap it on the head there. Thanks very much, Alan.